This guy, this should be the lead story, is clearly suffering from massive mental decline. He is out of his mind with all of the show and tell procedures that go on in the Oval Office. 2 days ago, he gave 3 press conferences in a row. And if you don't think he has dementia, let's just discuss the time that when he was on the campaign trail that he tried to perform oral sex on a microphone. If Joe Biden did this,
I hope this
I
is what Democrats do next year. If this is the Democratic strategy, congratulations, America. You've already reelected Republican majorities as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to yesterday's news channel, where we watch CNN so you don't have to. On Newsnight with Abby Phillip, Scott Jennings once again exposed just how ridiculous the CNN panel has become. They're accusing Donald Trump of scaring people with increased police presence, while offering, as always, no real solutions. Then they go after federal agents, saying masks shouldn't be allowed, even if these people are doxxed and their families are threatened. As you'd expect, Scott Jennings dismantled the panel's arguments, and we're going to break it all down. Anyway, let's watch Scott Jennings take apart the CNN panel. Let's go.
That are on the books.
We can
Putting
talk about
troops
those
in
numbers.
Washington is the law.
You
He
can't
has
trust
the right to
government
do
when they
that.
call in Republican leaders from Indiana and say, hey, you have to figure out a way to redistrict so that we can get more seats. That's not how government
And is
is supposed to
100%
work.
legal in the state of Indiana. You can do that. There's no prohibition. Now, whether they will do it or not,
I think this
I
is
don't
a,
know.
hold on. This is actually
Trust in government?
this is a very key point that you just brought up. I mean, whether it's Indiana or anything else that Trump is doing, D.C., lots of things are permissible. But many presidents, many political figures before Trump did not do them, because in this country, you have choices here, right? There are laws on the books that allow you to do certain things. And many politicians say, we're not going to go there because, let's say, hypothetically, that's reserved for extreme circumstances. I think what people are responding to right now is Trump looking at all those things and saying, I'm going to do what, as he said, whatever I want, if there is any inkling of a chance that I have the power to do it.
Well, he is exercising political power, and as Pete pointed out about the redistricting, it is legal to do. I think the National Guard in Washington, D.C. not only is legal, but I think even the mayor of Washington, D.C. this week has said, hey, it seems to be working. So I think the alarmism from Trump's biggest detractors is the same kind of rhetoric and alarmism that they were sounding back in September and October during the election. And how did the American people respond to it then? They voted for Donald Trump. The way you solve all problems in a political system is you go out and try to win an election.
Yeah.
But you can't do redistricting and changing the rules so that
sure you can.
the votes
He doesn't want to run
Sure
another
you can.
election.
Democrats did not win the last election for a reason. They may not win the next one for a reason. And so in a political system, you have to trust the voters. The voters elected Donald Trump. He's basically running the play that he laid out. And yes, I understand the whining and alarmism now, but the way you solve all your problems in politics is to convince people that you are right and they are wrong, and you do it at the ballot box.
At other countries, and you see things like that in places like Iran and elsewhere, agents of the state masking their faces, hiding their identities. What is your gut feeling about that when you see those images, and why, perhaps, do some people not apply that to the United States when it's happening here?
I would prefer that these ICE agents weren't covering their face, but I understand why. I understand that there are threats against them, and they have to also protect their safety in what is a very volatile world, whether ICE is enforcing immigration laws or not.
But don't you think, look, rank-and-file police officers in this country are carrying out law enforcement activities every single day. FBI agents, regular police officers, they are not covering their faces. And what he's talking about in that clip is the relationship between law enforcement and the community that they serve. And what happens when that gets broken down, when agents close their faces off to the world and say, I'm not accountable to you. I think that is one of the things that has alarmed people.
We've reached forward to neighborhood policing and making it so that now the communities have the relationship with the people that their job is to keep them safe. But you're bringing in military who they're not trained to do that. They're trained to be in Syria and Iraq and Iran in places where it's combative. That's a different mindset. And we don't want to make that where we have those people coming into our communities. They don't know the lingo. They don't know the verbiage and the people in the neighborhoods and how they act and what is okay, what's not okay, where the safe places are. So you're creating a situation that can boil over and people can get hurt because you're bringing in people that don't understand it.
That has been said for weeks now. And tell me one example of when that's happened.
Of what?
Of what?
Of these clashes between the National Guard and citizens.
They are happening every day.
I mean, they happen in L.A. with protesters, but have they happened in D.C.?
There are clashes between these forces. I mean, they're all different types, right? It's a lot of different agencies that are involved here, and regular citizens every day. Maybe you haven't seen them, but they are happening. I think the point that he's making is, when people sign up to serve in the military, they're not signing up to police their fellow citizens. They're signing up to defend the homeland.
National Guard, though, does sign up to engage in emergency situations.
Yes, but that is.
So Abby Phillip said Donald Trump is basically out here saying, I'll do whatever I want if I think I have the political power to do it. That shows a huge disconnect between the people who support Donald Trump and the people who hate him. Because nobody on that panel would argue that Democrats, the courts, and the establishment haven't thrown obstacle after obstacle in his way. But you notice what Abby didn't say? She didn't say he was breaking the law. What Trump supporters see is a guy fighting a corrupt system that doesn't want him to succeed. I spent a career in sales, and one thing always stuck with me: activity leads to results. And Donald Trump is insanely active. That's why he looks so disruptive, because he's actually trying to fix decades of problems that both parties have ignored. And the more roadblocks they throw at him, the harder he fights. It makes his supporters rally behind him even more. And I love when Pete asked the panel, what clashes are you even talking about between citizens and law enforcement? And their answer, it's happening all the time. Really? If there was a major abuse, CNN would make it a lead story. But that's not what we're getting. We're getting vague whining, no evidence. And that's why nobody trusts them. Back to it.
Different from policing.
This is the
we all know that.
But
Scott, I know you were going to say something.
doing.
Scott was going to say something.
On the masks, I actually interviewed the director of ICE today, Todd Lyons, on my radio show for about 20 minutes. I asked him point blank about the masks. I said, what is the situation with the masks? Why is it happening? What is your observation? He said, I don't like the masks. I wish we didn't have to do the masks. He said, back in March, we weren't. But then something changed. And what changed was people started doxing these ICE agents, posting their personal information, posting where their families are, posting where their kids' schools are, putting them and their families in jeopardy. And he doesn't want them to have to do it.
But that is a risk that every law enforcement officer in this country faces. Everyone.
You think you think they should face
I'm not
that
saying,
risk?
listen, I'm not saying that that is right. I'm not saying that is good. It's terrible. No one should be doxxed. No one's families should be brought into their work. But I am saying is that there are beat officers in this country, in every city in America, who are doing their jobs in extremely dangerous situations, and they show their face. Why? Because they work for the people. That is the reason. So the argument here is that's a risk that you take when you take on this responsibility of having law enforcement power in this country, because the accountability is between you and the people.
Yeah, well, I don't agree that law enforcement officers in any agency should have to face the risk of their family being assaulted or themselves.
I don't agree with that either, but I do think
that
the accountability piece of it cannot be ignored.
Do you
think that there should not be
They're always the
accountability,
persecutor
Scott,
and
for
the victim.
law enforcement,
Persecutor,
regardless
victim.
of what agency they represent?
Of course there should be accountability, and I agree with you about the relationship between policing agencies and the community. Unfortunately, in this case, certain people in our community have decided to take matters in their own hands. I heard a clip today of a congressman named John Larson from Minnesota screaming into a microphone, "This is Nazi Germany, they're the Gestapo." What do you think that does to radicalize people? That is irresponsible, and it's not the fault of an ICE agent for that kind of rhetoric to be in our system.
Everybody's missing the point here. The point is he's doing this on purpose. He's priming the public to get accustomed to having the military in the streets. He's priming you to have distrust in the rule of law. He himself is a convicted felon. He opposes the rule of law, and we know this because he pardoned people that beat up cops on January 6th. Meanwhile, this guy, this should be the lead story, is clearly suffering from massive mental decline. He is out of his mind with all of the show and tell procedures that go on in the Oval Office. 2 days ago, he gave 3 press conferences in a row. And if you don't think he has dementia, let's just discuss the time that when he was on the campaign trail that he tried to perform oral sex on a microphone. If Joe Biden did this,
I hope this
don't
is what
think
Democrats
there
do
would be
next
an
year.
ER.
If this is the Democratic strategy, congratulations, America. You've already reelected Republican majorities as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, because Trump's approval is in the low 30s. It's in the low 30s right now.
Coming up next.
So the whole mask thing, Scott mentioned he talked to ICE an ICE head ICE official, I can't remember, on his radio show. And what that guy said echoes exactly how I feel. I don't want law enforcement wearing masks. That's not ideal. Everything they're saying about community connection is valid. But here's the reality. Democrats, with their incendiary rhetoric, have encouraged riots and attacks on police. That's why ICE agents and federal troops have to wear masks. Then Abby says, well, that's a risk you take when you sign up for the job. Really? Nobody should have their family dragged into their work. And by putting on masks, that fixes the problem. So let me see if I understand Abby's logic, that showing their faces is more important than protecting their families' lives. There's no way to twist this. Safety comes first. ICE agents and federal troops are just human beings trying to keep communities safe. And they're doing the same thing I think we talked about yesterday, painting federal troops as the enemy when all they're doing is protecting honest people. And then we got the lady sitting next to Scott Jennings. She looks familiar. We already did a video on her 2-3 weeks ago when she went on a racist tirade against MAGA and white people. Let's be real. If you're a white liberal Karen and someone disagrees with you, especially if you voted for Donald Trump, you're automatically the devil. That's how she sees the world. She even said Trump is in mental decline and used as proof some moment from the campaign trail where he leaned into a microphone. Her claim was he was simulating oral sex. It's insane. Everyone knew that he was joking about the volume of the mic. Even it was MSNBC or CNN, I can't remember which, had to walk back that nonsense because they hadn't even watched the whole video in context. That's her evidence of mental decline. That is ridiculous. Like, she's not just wrong, she's desperate. So the same old script again. They claim and pretend that Donald Trump is a dictator grabbing power, but when asked for proof, they never provide any. Then they argue federal agents should risk their families' safety to make CNN feel good about community connection. And obviously the bigger issue is all this Trump bad rhetoric is exactly what Democrats lost on in the election. It's not solutions, it's not vision, it's just whining and fear mongering. Scott's right. If they stick to this strategy, they're going to keep losing for a long time. But what do you guys think? Should federal agents wear masks to protect themselves and their families? Or does CNN actually have a point about showing their faces to the community? And do you think anytime in the near future CNN will actually provide evidence when they make up these claims about Trump scaring people? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. No announcements. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to watch my video. It means the world to me. I know your time's valuable. Always now, put God first. See you guys.